very warm welcome to you, and a quiet thank you for choosing to spend your time with us here. It is a good and gentle thing to set aside a piece of the day for simple stillness, and we are so very glad you have found your way to this quiet corner. Within this story you will not find grand adventure or troubling seas, for its only purpose is to be a soft place for the mind to rest, a gentle stream of words and sounds meant to carry you softly towards the shores of peaceful sleep. So, find a comfortable position and allow your breathing to slow to the gentle rhythm of a tide on a tranquil bay. Let the day's concerns drift away like milkweed fluff on a warm, lazy breeze. And as you settle in to listen, if you feel that this story brings you a measure of peace, we would be so very grateful if you would like this story and subscribe to our channel so that we might share more quiet moments with you again. Now, close your eyes and let us begin. Chapter 1. The first resonant step. One does not, perhaps, decide to find a place like the Wold of Low Hum. One simply finds that their feet have, after a long and gentle meandering, led them there. And so it was for Oren, who stood at the lip of the shallow valley, feeling the last of the world's hurry fall away, like fine dust brushed from a traveler's cloak. The path behind had been one of unremarkable pleasantness, winding through the fields of nodding grasses and past slow, thoughtful streams. But this was different. The air itself felt softer here, carrying a scent of cool, damp earth and something else, something clean and ancient like the inside of a geode. A soft, moss-covered trail, looking more like a suggestion than a path, beckoned downwards. Each step Oren took upon it was cushioned, the sound of a footfall, not a crunch or a scuff, but a soft, satisfying press into the thick sage-green carpet, and with each step deeper into the valley's embrace, a peculiar sensation began to build. It was not quite a sound, not at first. It was a feeling, a subtle vibration that seemed to travel up through the soles of Oren's soft boots. A resonance felt deep in the bones, like the contented purr of some great and gentle creature slumbering beneath the earth. This, then, was the hum. The wold was cradled between low rolling hills, their crests softened and rounded, as if by eons of gentle hand stroking them smooth. The light was pale and kind, diffused by a high, thin veil of pearlescent cloud that spread from one horizon to the other, ensuring that no shadow was ever cast too sharply. Everything was bathed in an even, benevolent glow, a light that asked nothing of the eyes but to rest. Dotted among the mossy ground and leaning against the gentle slopes were ancient, weathered stones, their surfaces a tapestry of muted greens and grays, looking as comfortable and settled as sleeping sheep. Tucked into a slight hollow, almost a part of the landscape itself, was a small cottage. It was built of a pale silvery wood that seemed to have been smoothed by centuries of soft rain, with a roof of thick, overlapping slate tiles that held their own miniature gardens of moss. The door was ajar, a silent invitation. There was no smoke from the stone chimney, only a quiet sense of waiting, of peaceful emptiness ready to be filled. It did not feel abandoned, merely unoccupied, like a comfortable chair waiting for someone to come and be still within it. Pushing the smooth wooden door, Oren found it swung inward without a sound. The air inside was cool and still, thick with the comforting scent of dried lavender that must have been hung from the rafters long ago, mingled with the faint, sweet perfume of beeswax. A simple wooden table, its surface polished to a soft sheen by countless absent-minded touches, stood in the center of the single room. Beside a small, clean hearth was a single chair, stuffed with what looked to be soft wool and covered in a simple, undyed linen. It was a space that spoke a profound, uncomplicated peace. Oren gently closed the door, and the soft thump of the latch settling into place was the only sound. In the sudden, profound quiet that followed, the hum of the valley seemed to rise up to meet it. It was clearer now, a low, resonant note that was everywhere and nowhere at once, a sound that one felt in the chest, a gentle vibration that seemed to align with the slow, steady rhythm of a peaceful heart. A single shaft of the pale, diffused light fell upon the wooden floor, illuminating the slow, graceful dance of a few dust motes. A feeling of profound release washed over Oren, a loosening in the shoulders that had been held tight for so long without notice. Here was a place where one was asked to do nothing but be. The journey was over. Placing a small satchel on the floor, Oren moved towards the window, which looked out not onto a grand vista, but a simple, calming view of a single ancient stone covered in soft lichen. The pane of glass was old and slightly warped, making the world outside ripple gently, as if seen through clear, still water. Oren drew a long, slow breath, the first truly deep and unburdened breath in a very long time. The air tasted of peace, of clean stone, and quiet growing things. The hum was a gentle lullaby, a promise of rest. Here, in this quiet, resonant wold, there were no expectations, no demands, only the soft ground, the gentle light, and the all-pervading, soothing hum of the earth itself, endlessly, peacefully, breathing. Here was a place to simply be still. Chapter 2. The Languid Textures. Days in the wold began to unfold not by the clock, but by the slow, gentle shifting of the light. Time here was a different sort of thing, measured in the gradual warming of a stone in the morning sun, or the slow unfurling of a fern's frond. Oren found a simple, deep contentment in this unhurried rhythm. The mornings were spent in quiet observation, watching as the pearlescent cloud cover thinned just enough to allow a warmer, cream-colored light to spill into the valley, making the dewdrops on the moss gleam like scattered pearls. There was a profound satisfaction to be found in simple, tangible things. Oren would spend long, quiet moments tracing the swirling grain of the cottage's wooden table, its surface a map of slow growth and quiet years. The wood was warm and impossibly smooth beneath a fingertip. Outside, Oren discovered the language of the river stones. They were not jagged or sharp, but had been tumbled by the valley's slow, gentle stream for so long that they felt like solid water in the palm, each one a unique weight and a unique, perfect smoothness. The stream itself was a marvel of quietude. It was not a rushing torrent, but a clear, shallow flow that moved with a languid grace over its bed of shimmer pebbles. It made a sound like soft sighing, a constant, gentle murmur that harmonized perfectly with the deeper, more resonant hum of the land. Oren would often sit on the mossy bank, feet tucked beneath, simply listening to this peaceful duet of water and earth, a sound that seemed to wash the mind clean of any lingering clutter. It was on one such afternoon, while Oren was watching the way the gentle current made the waterweeds sway in a slow hypnotic dance, that the first sign of another soul appeared. It was not a call or a footstep, but a scent, a warm, sweet fragrance of stewed pears, and the gentle spice of ginger drifted on the air, a comforting domestic smell that felt like a quiet kindness. Looking up, Oren saw a figure standing near the cottage porch, a person who seemed as much a part of the wold as the ancient stones. This was Fiora. She was possessed of a stillness that seemed to emanate from her very being, dressed in simple clothes the color of dried lavender and sage. She held a small, steaming ceramic mug in her hands. She offered no grand greeting, but simply smiled a small, gentle smile that barely touched her lips but shone in her eyes. With a slow, deliberate grace, she placed the mug on the smooth wooden railing of the porch, and then, with a soft nod towards Oren, turned and walked away as quietly as she had come, her feet making no sound on the mossy ground. Oren approached the porch, the warmth of the mug a welcoming beacon. The ceramic was a deep, earthy brown, and it fit perfectly in Oren's hands, a comforting weight. The tea inside was a pale golden color, and the steam that rose from it carried that wonderful scent of pear and ginger, a fragrance that felt like a hug. The first sip was a revelation, not just warm, but a deep, soothing heat that spread from the inside out, a gentle sweetness tempered by the faintest spicy warmth. It tasted of thoughtfulness and quiet care. Their first real meeting was just as simple, just as silent. The next day, Oren found a particularly beautiful river stone, perfectly round and with a single unbroken line of white quartz running through it. Oren polished it with a soft cloth until it gleamed and left it on the same porch railing where the tea had been. Later, watching from the window, Oren saw Fiora discover it. She picked it up, her fingers tracing the quartz line, and that same gentle, knowing smile graced her face. She gave a small, appreciative nod towards the cottage before tucking the stone into a pocket. No words had been exchanged, and yet everything had been said. It was a communication conducted in the valley's own language, in the warmth of tea, the smoothness of a stone, the shared appreciation for a simple, beautiful thing. It was a companionship built on quietude, a mutual understanding that in a place as peaceful as the Wold of Low Hum, the most profound connections were the ones that needed no sound at all. The ever-present hum seemed to swell gently, a low, resonant note of approval. Chapter 3. The Weaving of Light and Sound. As Oren settled more deeply into the wold's gentle embrace, the world began to reveal its more subtle wonders. The senses, no longer assailed by the clamor of a busier life, began to attune themselves to finer, softer things. The ever-present hum was no longer just a background vibration. It had become a comforting known companion, a constant reassurance that all was well. Oren began to notice the way it wove itself into the fabric of the valley, interacting with the light, the water, and the very air. The evenings were particularly magical. As the diffused daylight softened from cream to a pale, dusty rose, the lumina lichen began to stir. growing in soft, velvety patches on the trunks of the few ancient, broad-leaf trees, and on the northern faces of the largest boulders, they spent the day looking like simple, unassuming gray-green growths. But as dusk settled, they would begin to emit a soft, warm, golden light. It was not a steady light, but a slow, gentle pulse, a rhythmic cadence that seemed to beat in perfect time with the deep, resonant hum of the earth. Orin would often take a soft wool blanket and sit nestled amongst the moss, watching this silent orchestra of light. The entire valley would be filled with these slow, peaceful heartbeats of gold, casting long, soft-edged shadows that swayed gently. It was a light that was alive, a light that seemed to breathe. In its warm, gentle glow, the world felt impossibly safe, wrapped in a blanket of light and sound that promised nothing but a deep and dreamless peace. One day, following the murmur of the stream further than before, Orin came to a place where the water pooled in a shallow, crystal-clear basin. The streambed here was thick with shimmer pebbles, their smooth gray surfaces looking quiet and unassuming. Fiora was there, sitting on the bank, her bare feet trailing in the cool water. She gestured for Orin to come closer, her smile an invitation. Orin sat, and following Fiora's lead, dipped a hand into the stream. The effect was instantaneous and wondrous. The moment Orin's skin touched the water, a tingling, pleasant sensation of weightlessness spread up the arm. The water around the hand began to fizz with a fine, silvery, harmless effervescence that caught the light like 1,000 tiny diamonds. When Orin lifted the hand from the stream, a faint, shimmering sheen, like liquid moonlight, clung to the skin for a few moments, cool and lovely, before slowly dissolving into nothing, leaving behind only the feeling of deep, clean refreshment. Fiora's voice, when she finally spoke, was as soft as the moss they sat upon, hardly more than a breath of sound. "The hum," she murmured, her gaze fixed on the slow, pulsing glow of a nearby patch of lichen, "is just the valley's way of breathing. It is very old and very content." It was not an explanation meant to solve a mystery, but a simple sharing of a truth, as one might share a piece of warm bread. The words themselves seemed to become part of the valley's quiet, absorbed into the air without a ripple. Orin looked at Fiora, then back at the water, and understood. The magic of this place was not a grand or showy thing. It was quiet, gentle, and deeply ingrained in the natural order of things. The pulsing lichen, the shimmering water, the resonant hum, they were all just different expressions of the wold's profound and abiding peace. They were not separate wonders, but harmonious notes in a single ancient and deeply calming song. To live here was to become part of that song. It meant slowing one's own rhythm to match the pulse of the lichen, to feel the gentle fizz of starlight in the water, and to let the hum resonate not just in the bones, but in the very heart. Orin dipped a hand back into the water, watching the beautiful, fleeting shimmer, and felt a quiet, wondrous joy settle deep inside, as soft and as gentle as the golden light that was beginning to bloom all around them. Chapter 4. The Settling of a Quiet Heart. There came a point when the quiet of the wold seeped from the outside in, until it filled every corner of Orin's being. The subtle, persistent need to do something, to be productive or to fill the silence, simply melted away like a frost in the morning's gentle light. It was replaced by a deep and abiding contentment in the simple act of being. The days were no longer containers for activity, but were themselves the experience, to be savored moment by slow, unfolding moment. Long, peaceful afternoons were now spent in the soft wool-stuffed chair by the clean hearth. It was positioned perfectly to catch a single, wide shaft of pale light that slanted through the window in the latter half of the day. Oren would sit, sometimes with a book lying unopened in their lap, and just watch the dust motes. They were a universe in miniature, a slow and graceful ballet of tiny, shimmering particles, rising and falling on imperceptible currents of air. Their silent, intricate dance was a perfect reflection of a mind that had become just as quiet, just as unburdened. The hum of the valley had undergone a transformation in Oren's perception. It no longer felt like an external sound or vibration to be observed, but had become a part of Oren's own internal landscape. It was the natural, resonant frequency of a soul at complete and utter peace. It was the feeling of a quiet heart, the gentle thrum of blood moving through the veins, the slow and easy rhythm of effortless breath. It was the sound of stillness itself. Sometimes, a thought of the world outside the valley would drift into Oren's mind, but it held no weight, no urgency. These thoughts were like distant, low-lying hills seen through a thick and calming fog. Their shapes were indistinct, their details lost, their presence gentle and unthreatening. There was no anxiety attached to them, no pull to return. They were simply a quiet acknowledgement of a life once lived, a life that felt as if it belonged to someone else, in another, much faster time. Fiora would sometimes visit, her presence a comfortable silence that complemented Oren's own. They would sit together on the porch, sipping tea made from the valley's honey herbs, its taste sweet and earthy. They would watch the slow, ponderous journey of a beetle across a stone, or observe the way the light changed the color of the moss, from sage to olive, to a deep, resonant emerald. Their companionship was a shared stillness, a mutual appreciation for the profound beauty of the small and the slow. One evening, as the lumina lichen began their soft rhythmic glowing, Fiora pointed to a pattern in the weaving of Oren's blanket. In a voice barely louder than the hum, she shared a fragment of an old story, how the first weaver learned her craft by watching the way the starlight wove itself through the branches of the trees on a clear night. It was a simple tale, a gentle piece of lore that deepened the sense of wonder without creating any need for answers. It was just another soft thread in the rich, peaceful tapestry of the wold. Lying in the simple bed at night, cocooned in soft linen and wool, Oren would feel the hum resonate up from the very foundations of the cottage. It was like being held in a gentle, benevolent hand. The body felt pleasantly heavy, anchored to the earth in the most comforting way imaginable. Every muscle was loose, every joint at ease. Each breath descended deeper and more effortlessly than the one before, a slow tide of peace flowing in and out. There were no thoughts of tomorrow, no reflections on yesterday, only the gentle, profound, and all-encompassing peace of the now. Chapter 5. The Resonance Carried Forth. Oren awoke one morning not to the gentle light, but to a different sensation. The cool, clean scent of imminent rain on the air. It was a fragrance rich with damp earth and the mineral tang of wet stone, a smell that spoke of renewal and deep, peaceful saturation. With this scent came a feeling of profound completeness, an effortless sense of restoration that felt as natural and as welcome as the coming rain itself. The quiet work of the wold was done. The hum was still there, of course, as constant as the hills, but it now felt as if it was emanating from within Oren as much as from the valley floor. It was the quiet, steady rhythm of Oren's own breathing, the slow and gentle beat of a rested heart. It was a resonance that had been absorbed so deeply it had become a part of Oren's very fabric, a quiet internal song that would be carried always, wherever the path might lead. The decision to depart was not a decision at all, but a simple intuitive knowing, as a migratory bird knows when it is time to take to the wing. There was no sadness in it, no sense of loss, only a quiet gratitude for the sanctuary that had been so freely given. Oren carefully swept the cottage floor, smoothed the linens on the bed, and left everything just as it had been found, a space of peaceful emptiness, waiting to offer its solace to the next gentle soul who might wander this way. As Oren stepped out onto the porch, a soft drizzle began to fall. The drops were not cold or harsh, but gentle and fine, settling on the moss without a sound and beating on the surface of the stones. Fiora was waiting by the path that led out of the valley. She held no gift of food or trinkets for the journey, but offered something far more precious. In her outstretched palm lay a single river stone, the very one Oren had left for her. It was dark and smooth from the rain, and yet it felt impossibly warm to the touch. Oren took the stone, its warmth seeping into the skin, a gentle, lasting kindness. Holding it cupped in both hands, Oren could feel a faint, familiar vibration emanating from its core, a tiny, perfect echo of the valley's great and gentle hum. It was a piece of the wold's peace, made tangible and small enough to carry in a pocket. Fiora smiled her quiet, knowing smile, and with a final soft nod, she turned and walked back towards her own simple dwelling, melting into the gentle gray of the rain-dusted landscape. The walk out of the Wold of Low Hum was as quiet and as peaceful as the arrival. The soft rain hushed the world, wrapping everything in a veil of silver and gray. The hum of the valley slowly faded with each step, not abruptly, but like a lovely, resonant note that hangs in the air and then, with infinite gentleness, is gone. But it was not truly gone. It remained in the warmth of the stone in Oren's pocket and in the new, slow, steady rhythm of Oren's own quiet heart. The departure was not an ending, but a gentle continuation. The peace of the wold was not a thing to be left behind, but a resonance to be carried forth, a quiet song for the journey ahead. As Oren reached the lip of the valley and looked back one last time, there was only the soft green sleeping land, breathing quietly under the gentle rain, and in that moment, Oren understood that home is not always a place, but sometimes it is a peace that you learn to carry inside yourself.